Peace, fam. I'm Nicole Amaya, your real life healing coach. And this episode is for the ones who look fine, but feel like they're crumbling on the inside. Today, I want to share a moment that changed everything for me. The moment that I realized I wasn't okay, I was just functional. I was doing all the things. I was showing up, smiling, performing, working, but I was disconnected from who I was. I was barely surviving. By the end of this episode, I hope you're able to look at your own life with more clarity, but most importantly, with more compassion. So let me take you back. I was leading a team of 15 direct reports. I was homeschooling my daughter. I was balancing work and life like a pro. And at least that's what it looked like from the outside. But behind the scenes, I was using caffeine to wake up and I was relying on cannabis to fall asleep. Okay. And not because I wanted to per se, but because I had to in order to function. I told myself it was healthier, than taking sleeping pills, but I wasn't restoring. I was literally sedating myself to sleep. I was sedating to get to sleep and I was jolting my system to wake up in the rising. Like, not the kind of life you really want to be living, right? But this is the life that so many of us are living, and this is where I found myself. I felt stuck. I felt like I couldn't change. I didn't want to be dependent on substances. I didn't want to be dependent on things that I knew at the end of the day really wasn't that great for me, especially not like on a daily, consistent basis. But the truth was, I was exhausted. My nervous system was completely shot. I couldn't rest. I couldn't really feel joy. I was numb and I was literally just going through the motions. Have you ever found yourself just going through the motions? You don't really feel connected to yourself. You don't really feel connected to your day. You're just literally on autopilot. And I know that a lot of you can relate, like no one could really tell what I was going through because I was still high performing. I realized something important in that season though. I wasn't okay. I was just functional, and high functioning burnout is still burnout. But here's the shift. This time I didn't beat myself up for feeling the way that I did. I didn't shame myself for struggling. I met myself with self-compassion. So let's pause here because this right here, this is one of the most powerful mindset shifts you can make on your healing journey. And, I'm going to get into self-compassion and self-criticism in a moment, but I really want to highlight this. Like, on my healing journey, I knew I was making progress because there was a time where I would literally beat myself up for feeling tired, for being exhausted, for struggling, for having a hard day. Sometimes the things I would say to myself would be so embarrassing. Like, I would never want someone else to hear how I would talk to me. It's like I had this expectation of myself to be superwoman, to not be human, to chastise myself for having human emotions, for having human feelings. Like, when I look back at it, it doesn't make logical sense, but that's how we have been conditioned, especially living in a capitalist society. And not even just that, as Black women. But we'll get back to this. Let me talk about self-compassion and self-criticism. Like I said, this is so powerful when it comes to relating to yourself. You can't get very far on your healing journey unless you show yourself compassion. And that's not something you're usually taught as a kid, right? I know I wasn't, because a lot of times our parents, our mothers, our fathers, our families, like, that wasn't the vocabulary of their time. They wasn't thinking about self-compassion. They were thinking about, hey, we got to get this stuff done. We got to push through. Self-compassion is the practice of giving yourself the same care, softness, and grace that you would offer a friend who's hurting, right? It says you're allowed to feel this way. You're doing your best. You don't have to earn rest or worthiness. Self-criticism, on the other hand, is your inner bully, okay? It says you should be stronger than this. What's wrong with you? You're behind, you're failing, try harder. So let me give you an example of this, okay? So self-criticism sounds like, I can't believe I'm still tired, right? Other moms can do way more than me, and they seem to be fine, right? I need to toughen up. Self-compassion sounds like, I'm carrying so much. Of course I feel tired. I deserve support and rest too. Another example of this is like, okay, self-criticism says, you're so lazy. You said, maybe you journaled today and you didn't. But self-compassion says you didn't have the capacity today, and that's okay. You get to begin anew tomorrow. Self-compassion is the language of healing. Self-compassion is the language of self-love. Self-compassion allows you to hold the necessary space for yourself so that you can show up for you over and over and over again. Self-criticism makes it hard to want to show up for yourself. Self-criticism beats you down. Self-compassion lifts you up. Self-criticism always tells you that you're not enough. Self-compassion reminds you that you were born enough. Self-criticism makes you think you have to work hard to be worthy. Self-compassion reminds you that as soon as the universe breathed oxygen into your lungs, that you were worthy. You can't get far without self-compassion, because when you criticize yourself, it starts leading to other negative things. Nothing good comes out of self-criticism. Now, if you're a Black woman like me, you might be thinking, but if I'm too gentle on myself, right? If I don't push myself, hard enough, then I might just fall apart. We've been raised to carry everything, to suppress, to perform, to keep going no matter what. But here's the truth. Our mamas and our grandmamas, they didn't have the tools that we have now. They survived, but they were tired too, okay? They were breaking down in silence. And now that we do have the language and tools for healing, it's not weakness to use them. It's wisdom. It's evolution. It's liberation. Showing your kids that you don't have it all together, that's not failure. That's modeling emotional honesty. So let me share with you what I did during that season of burnout, okay? It wasn't some 10-step morning routine or, a silent retreat. I had to heal inside of my life. It was small, sacred, real-life healing, one micro practice at a time. So one thing I did, I started to add raw cacao and ashwagandha to my coffee. I used that to nourish my body instead of just stimulate it. I started to go to farmers markets weekly, and I cooked with intention. I used to sit on the steps in the morning, before I had to, start work, before my daughter woke up, just to catch my breath. I would take, 3-minute breath work, guided meditation sessions to calm my nervous system in the middle of a busy workday instead of just pushing through the overstimulation. I let go of the fantasy of perfect routines, and I began to embrace flexibility and grace. That's it. No grand gestures, just daily softness in the middle of real life. That's it. Here's the part I didn't always realize at first, that micro healing isn't just about self-care. It's about self-empowerment, okay? Because when life feels out of control, when the job is draining, the kids need everything, okay? The bills are piling up. We start to believe that we're powerless. Like, we just have to ride the storm and hope that we make it through. But the truth is, even in chaos, you still have a choice. Maybe not over everything, okay? But over something. That deep breath you take before responding to a stressful email, that's power. That 5-minute pause between meetings, that's reclaiming your time. Choosing a grounding herb instead of another cup of coffee, that's remembering that your body matters too. Micro healing is how we remind ourselves, I'm not a machine. I matter too. Even when life won't slow down, even when no one is coming to rescue you, okay? You get to choose small ways to come home to yourself. These aren't just coping mechanisms. They're daily acts of self-loyalty. They're how we build trust with ourselves, one intentional moment at a time. I wasn't ready to give up my morning coffee, and I wasn't ready to give up my bedtime cannabis. And I had to literally just meet myself where I was. And you may be in a place where you're like, hey, I want to make changes. I know there are some things that I'm doing that aren't the best for me, but I'm not in a place, or I'm not ready to make that complete change. That's okay. I want to give you these 3 reminders, okay? And I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget. So number 1 is to start where you are. Just start where you are. That's all it takes, literally. You may want to, have this big goal, but maybe that's a little bit too much for you where you are right now. You have to be honest with yourself. Number two is to don't chase perfection. Yeah, in a perfect world, I would have, stopped drinking coffee, stopped doing cannabis, all that stuff. But we don't live in a perfect world, right? So I did what I could to help support my nervous system. I started to add nootropics to my coffee. I made sure I got outside to get some vitamin D in the morning. I made sure I went to farmers market to get local produce, and I took the time to cook my food with intention. And I did that with my daughter, so it was a nice bonding experience for us too. We did that weekly. So those things helped my nervous system in the moment. That's what I felt like I was capable of, so that's what I did. And lastly, do what you can, right? Do what you can. Don't chase perfection and just start where you are. Literally, those things help guide me. Sometimes it's like you may have this goal or this vision and you feel like you can't accomplish it right then and there, so you just don't do anything. I don't want you to feel that way. I want you to own your power. You can make a change. You can pour into you. You can start implementing micro healing. You can start implementing micro changes into your daily life. It doesn't have to be this big grandeur changes. And then over time, you can get to those big changes, but it starts something really small first. But I do want to share something really exciting. It's exciting for me. So at the recording of this video, I have been cannabis free for 22 days. 22 days. So I do not use cannabis to get to sleep. I have been able to actually sleep at night. And some nights, it's a little questionable. Okay. It's a little questionable. However, I am getting rest, and I never thought I would be in this place. I always thought I'm going to have to rely on cannabis to get to sleep. And I didn't want to do that because, one, the cannabis that we have here now, like, it's different from the cannabis probably like the Bob Marley had, okay? It's full of just stuff, chemicals. The THC is really high. It's been linked to, like, mental breaks and psychosis. Like, I'm just like, okay, I don't got time for that, right? So I have been able to make that shift, and I am so proud of myself. Like I said, years ago, I wasn't there, and that's okay. Like, you start small, and then eventually, like, you can get to where you're going, but you have to make the start first. So I just wanted to share that because, yay, I'm excited. Even though I don't take cannabis anymore, I do herbs every day, okay? I am an herb girl. So you probably see me like with this cup of tea this whole episode. So I'm sipping on this chill tea. And at first, it's a pre-ground herbal blend, right? So at first I had got this because I would, sprinkle it in my little bowls or whatever. But now I just use it as straight tea. So it has some herbs, and I'm going to share what the herbs are. So it's Egyptian blue lotus, skullcap, red raspberry leaf, mullein, lavender buzz, ginkgo biloba, clip dagger, rose petals, and damiana. So I made this. I boiled it with water and stuff, and then I add a little milk, a little honey, and it's just like it helps. This is another thing I do. It helps calm my nervous system. So like I rely on herbs every day to help support my nervous system. That's literally a part of my everyday healing, a part of my micro healing, is I include herbs into my day. So I'll be sharing with y'all the herbs that I take because I really do think that they could be life changing. Honestly, you don't have to always. I got my natural girly. I don't want to be running to the doctor to get prescriptions and all this stuff. Like, the only prescription I use is the eczema cream, and once I can figure out how to get rid of eczema, then I won't do that. But I haven't figured that out yet. So if you got any ideas or tips, leave them below. But yeah, I don't want to be relying on pharmaceuticals. So herbs really get me through. It helps support, anxiety. It helps support depression. It helps support like the scattered mind. It helps support rest. So like I said, I'll be sharing the herbs that I take with you in these episodes because literally they have been life-changing. So let me ask you, what if your healing didn't require more effort, just more kindness? Because it's not your fault that you're tired. You've been carrying so much, but now you're going to carry yourself too. So here's your 24-hour action plan, okay? Pick one small thing today that reminds your body that you're safe and that you're worthy. Maybe it's drinking your morning drink slowly instead of on the run. Maybe it's stepping outside to feel the sun on your skin for 60 seconds. Maybe it's replacing that harsh inner voice with one sentence of compassion. Whatever it is, let it be enough. If this episode spoke to you, I want to personally invite you to download the Healing While Hustling Manifesto. Okay, inside I share these micro healing practices. I share reflection, tools, and mindset shifts that help me move from barely functioning to gently healing. Okay, the link is in the description below. So get your copy. It's a freebie, okay? It's a freebie. You can thank me later. So in the next episode, we're gonna dive into stillness and why rest is not a luxury. It's a survival skill, okay? Until then, be gentle with yourself. You've held enough. It's your turn to be held by you. This has been episode 3 of Healing While Hustling. I'm Coach Nicole Amai, and I'll see you next time. Also, share this episode with another woman or man who you think could benefit from this, because we all need these reminders. We all need these reminders that you can heal even in the chaos, even in the business of everyday life.